following podcast contains spoilers and words like and We watch the thing. We watch the thing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to We Watched a Thing. You got Billy and Dave. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, buddy. How you going?
I'm good. I've been looking forward to this one, and I know you have too. This is
I'm giddy like a schoolgirl. I'm so excited.
It's been about a month or so since we did our top 5 hidden gems, where of course the only prerequisite was that that the other person hadn't seen it. So that's how hidden it had to be. And with you that was tough because you've seen everything. But so here we are for report card time, mate. We're gonna check it. How should we give them like an A to F scale, like a report card?
I want some sort of a rating.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is going to be fun. How about you kick us off then?
I don't recall the order that you gave them to me in.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I reckon we do them in the order from most enjoyed to least enjoyed.
Okay, so start with the one I liked.
Start with the one you liked most. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's a very easy first cab off the rank then. I'm going to start with Better Off Ted.
Okay. Oh, good. This was the one I was most worried about because,
seriously?
like I said when I recommended it, it is the one that is the most kind of straight sitcom-y. Like it would be very easy for someone to watch one random episode of this show and go, "Oh, there's nothing really special about that." But there's something about this show that I find really special and comforting, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Really, really good sitcom.
It is. It's very, very funny.
It's like all the best sitcoms, and I'm like you. I'm a sitcom fan.
Yeah,
but like all of the best ones of I mean, I say recent years. It's probably not recent years, but it's not like Cheers or something. So the writing is really, really sharp. The characters are fantastic. The cast is awesome.
Yeah,
and Jay Harrington. This is I didn't know this, but I have since found out Jay Harrington, who's Ted, was the star of the American remake of a show that I gave you.
Really?
Can you guess which one?
Coupling?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Jay Harrington was Jack Davenport.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But yeah, I mean that American version of that show was fucking horrendous, but he's perfect in this. Borgia de Rossi was amazing. Yeah. Andrea Anders, who
I love her.
She looked familiar, and I couldn't put my finger on why. You said she. I mean, fuck. I literally I don't even remember if I watched Joey. That's how forgettable that was.
So she's like the lead romantic interest in Joey. That's the thing. Other than this, that I believe I know her the most from. But I've definitely seen her pop up in a few other things.
I did work out why she looked familiar. She's Mrs. Ted Lasso. So she's not a main character in that, but she's in a few episodes over Zoom calls and stuff. Yeah. And that's why she looked familiar. Yeah. But the hidden gem of this show for me, which I didn't know going in, obviously, till I started watching it, was Jonathan Slavin, who plays one of the scientists.
Yeah. Yeah, those scientists are hilarious.
I fucking love him. Most recently, the thing I'd seen him in was Santa Clarita Diet, where he's fucking hilarious. But he's always so funny. So that was a nice surprise for him to crop up. But it's so fucking funny.
It's one of the rare, like same as you, I love sitcoms, and I could watch a sitcom all day, every day. This is one of the few ones that still on rewatches actively makes me laugh out loud. Like I rewatch really Friends from start to finish at least once a year, but rarely these days does it really make me laugh out loud.
Oh no, it's more like a comfy blanket.
Yeah, exactly.
But because you're never going to laugh, a lot when you can recite the thing by heart.
Yeah,
I'm much the same with Friends. I mean, I can sit there and do it line for line. So you're not going to laugh out loud because the surprise isn't there.
Yeah,
and it's more of it's with a few exceptions. Friends is kind of the sitcom equivalent of like easy listening radio.
Yeah,
it's not pushing boundaries in most
not
cases.
Edgy or anything. Yeah,
with the exception of Ross Rachel rolling over the apple juice and going, "Oh, sorry."
Yes.
It's never going to be really risque. Whereas some of the comedy in Better Off Dead, it's quite dry and cynical.
Oh, it is. I love the corporate humor in it. Like I love the little interstitials of the company's new products and stuff.
That's got a real.
They get me every time.
Paul Verhoeven Starship Troopers kind of feel, which I love.
Yeah.
I mean, just this company could be Evil Corp from Mr. Robot.
Yes,
They are so unscripted that they freeze poor old Jonathan Slavin.
Yeah.
They cryogenically freeze this fucker.
Is that the same episode too? When he wakes up, he keeps screaming?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just randomly,
Yeah.
My God, it's so funny.
I'm so glad you enjoyed this show. So did you?
And it also gets a check for having a child actor who is fucking great.
Yeah. Yes.
Ted's daughter.
Yep.
And she's really young. I mean, she's under 10, surely.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
And she is. I mean, she holds her own against Portia de Rossi, who's one of the greatest comic actresses on the last 20 years on TV.
Yeah.
And she holds her own. She is fabulous as well. So I had a blast with this. I know we had to do 3 episodes. I think I'm up to episode 20. And I think there's only like 26 or something. So and the only reason I didn't finish it is because I suddenly went, shit, I've got 4 other shows I've got to watch.
Yep.
But yeah, massive thanks for this. I'm
so glad.
This is teacher gives this an A.
Excellent. Like I said, this was the one I was most cautious about. So, well, from one sitcom to another, because and this was actually, I got to say, this was tough. I really enjoyed just about every show you gave me, and picking the one that goes at the top is really, it's coupling, obviously. And the reason it's coupling is because this is the show that Noosk most enjoyed as well. So
yeah, I predicted that as well.
We put on episode 1, and that night we burned through like almost the entire first season, which of course, British television, I think it's 10 episodes for season 1. This show was absolutely hilarious. And, it is very easy when you're familiar with something to look at it and go like, oh yeah, it's the British Friends, but it's not really.
No.
Like it's, it's got your similarities in the terms of it's about a group of, 30-something friends, 3 men, 3 women.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the comparison ends, really. I think the humor is very distinctly British, but it's funny. It's not, when you think of British humor, I think generally you think of quite dry humor. And I think that there are times where it borders more into like the surreal. Like I think it's in episode 2 when our lead character, I forget all of their names. Steve, when he's about to bone the cute blonde lady, and he opens the bedside drawer to find her dildo, and it just keeps pulling out longer and longer and longer. And like it cuts away from him and then back to him.
So why does she have so many batteries?
It cuts away and then back to him like 10 times, and every time it cuts to him, it just gets even funnier. And there's something kind of mythical about it, like opening the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, where it's like the drawer is almost glowing at him. Like so many of the jokes in this show still land, like, however many years later. Like this was still absolutely hilarious to watch. So yeah, we burnt through and there were several jokes that you had mentioned. The giggle loop. Yep.
That, Melty Man.
Yep. That all got us. So this, of all of the shows, this is the one absolutely that we will watch through to the end. Like there's no question that this show is going to, I think plans are to watch it tonight when we're done recording. So
brilliant.
Yeah. So teacher,
fair warning, season 3 is not as good as 2 and 1 because
that happens, doesn't it?
Jeff isn't in it.
Oh, really?
There's another fake Jeff. I mean, I think the actor had gone over to the States. He was a main role in the New Adventures of Sabrina and a few other things. So
this is the interesting thing about the show and the way it treats its characters. Like Jeff is the most cartoony of the characters. Like Jeff and Jane are your kind of Joey and Phoebe equivalents.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're much more than that. They're not like, I mean, okay, early days, it's not like you've hit that Flanderization point yet that sitcoms tend to do. But they are very, very human at the same time. They're not just kind of caricatures of people. They are like real people. And some of Jeff's stuff, like that first episode where he's talking about the unflushable. Oh man, it just got me. Teacher gives an A.
Show us the breast. No, not that one. We want the good one.
Yes. Oh, that was so good.
I was when you messaged me saying, I think you were saying that you were on the Giggle Loop episode, and I knew that Inferno was next, and I was I think that's probably my favorite episode. Just not so much from, I mean, start to finish, I think that's an incredibly written episode of TV.
Yes, yeah.
But the bit that I still collapse laughing is when Jane gets herself seconds of lamb at the dinner, and is looking at the vegetarian, just going, meh.
Yeah. Oh, but even the whole sequence of Steve explaining the plot of Inferno and trying to pretend like it's not what it very clearly is, and then she decides that she also needs a spanking.
She feels very badly about her film.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. So what's your number 2?
That's that. I'm assuming you're giving it like an A or a B or something for.
Yes, teacher gives an A for
excellent.
Yes, excellent choice.
Alrighty, so from there, I think next would have to be Quiz.
Okay, yes, the miniseries.
Yep. I said when you were describing it, there were shades of Robert Redford's Quiz Show, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And it is. It's kind of like the British version of a similar real life story. But the weird thing about this, and you did allude to it a little bit, and I had seen a clip of the real Chris Tarrant being interviewed, which I stumbled across when I was sort of looking this up just before I put it on to read about refresh my mind about the story itself, where he was saying basically, of course they cheated. It's so obvious in hindsight. It's no one in their right mind could ever believe that there was any even a shadow of doubt. So I was kind of coming into it when I started the
with a bit of prejudice,
absolutely prejudiced, going, well, surely.
Yeah.
So much would be looked into before a story like this ever got to the public eye.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And for the first episode, I was convinced, they're guilty. So, but Matthew McFadden's such a good actor and he's so good in this.
He's excellent.
And his wife, whose name escapes me, but she's Fleabag's sister in Fleabag, is also great. I found her brother intensely annoying, but I suppose that was the point.
Yeah.
The surprise for me, who I didn't know was in it because you didn't mention it, fucking Michael Sheen as Chris Tarrant.
Yes.
Amazing.
He is great. Yeah.
Oh, he's
the whole cast is excellent.
It took me about half an episode to even twig that it was him.
Yeah.
He's so transformed in this.
Yeah.
I was sort of going, that dude looks a bit like Michael Sheen playing Aziraphale in Good Omens.
Yeah.
He's got with the wig on. And then I sort of go, it fucking is Michael Sheen.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
But then in the second episode where you start to where you're with, I think that's when the second one's when you're with McFadden and his wife. So the first one's the show, and then
I really love the structure of it because so that entire first episode, I think they are in it, but that is really about like the creation of the show, and it kind of gets you on like the BBC or whoever it is. It gets you on their side straight away. And then, by the end,
definitely. I mean, Paul Smith, the head of what are they called, Celador?
Yeah,
was very much sort of the hero of the piece, and even when you're in the third episode, you're sort of. I was kind of in his corner for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the second episode, I was sort of started going, well, maybe he's not. I mean, I know his wife's a bit of a nutbag, and her brother's a complete ass. Yeah. But maybe he's just seems like a bit of a kind of a bumbling, very British and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to the third episode, I was again thinking, for the first 2/3 of the last episode, they're definitely guilty.
Yeah.
Tarrant was right. They're obviously guilty. I feel bad for him because he just seems like he's completely whipped and his wife's beaten him into this, and I feel bad. But when you get to the actual court case bit of the third episode, and they say, and then they drop all of these massive sort of mic drop moments of
number of coughs per minute.
Those 19 coughs are really telling. Until you look at the fact there were 192 coughs, and then she plays the footage.
They're just the ones they boosted the volume on,
and the fact they boosted the volume, they edited the tape together, and then destroyed the originals. And then when their QC, the defense QC, plays the woman that won a previous million, and there were coughs all the way through. All of these things, I start to go, oh my God, oh my God. And I was so intrigued, I actually went off, and on YouTube you could actually watch every single question of the real show. And I'm now convinced he's fucking innocent.
Same. I just found this miniseries absolutely fascinating. I thought it was so well constructed and written and put together, the way that it's very perfectly split in those 3 episodes that almost tell different sides of the story almost, with the final, being that court case. I was the same. I walked away going, there is no way this guy cheated. I just don't think it's possible. Like, how could he identify that? And then also when you find out that the guy who was supposedly helping him cheat had some condition that just made him cough.
He's got an uncontrollable cough. Yeah. And the other bit which got me, which the thing that made me flip-flop the most, when they showed his wife looking up at the monitor, and it very distinctly made it look like, she's waiting until she thinks the camera's off her before she coughs, because she thinks that when she's not on screen, she's not being recorded. And then and I was like, God, she really is. I can see that. They're right. I can see her doing it. Oh, you lying fucking bitch. Oh. And then the defense QC comes on and goes, and is that what you were doing? She's like, no. They put you behind your husband, and I couldn't see his face, and I knew he was nervous. The only way I could see his face and feel connected to him was to look and see him on screen. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I doubted you.
Yeah.
It's very, very well written.
Yes.
And it really made me think, because you get a lot of these sort of 3-part reenactments of real life crime stories, whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're really good. Most of the time they're not. And it really made me think about, geez, a good writer is everything on a TV show.
Yeah.
It's like with, as you were saying, with coupling as well. Stephen Moffat, who created that, who also did the best stuff on Doctor Who and created Sherlock and created Press Gang from when I was a kid. Good TV writers make or break a show. Yeah. More than the cast, more than anything. It's all down to the writing.
Yeah. Nice. So what's the grade, mate?
I'm going to say B+, just because Better Off Ted was so good. I can't quite put them on the same. But it's a really great miniseries, and I'm really glad because I'd never even heard of it, and I'm really glad I watched it.
Nice. Excellent. All right. Well, my number 2 choice, which I also very much enjoyed, but Noosk did not enjoy this anywhere near as much as I did, is The Magicians. Yes! So from the moment so 3 of the shows you gave me, I didn't even need to, we had the 3-episode rule. I was hooked by the end of the first episode of 3 shows, and The Magicians was one of them. I do agree with Noose doesn't like it as much as I do. She doesn't like mostly the characters, just like as a general rule. She thinks they're all kind of dicks, and she thinks most of the acting is pretty bad, and I do have to kind of agree with her.
Oh, this is hurting.
But it's so much fun that I don't care. I'm just into it. Like, I actually quite like our lead character, who, again, why am I so bad with names?
Quentin Coldwater.
Quentin Coldwater, yes, very cool name. I actually quite like him, and I like his kind of obsession with those children's books and the way that that's obviously building to something. Like,
yeah, and I mean, she might not stick with it if she's not a fan, but the first 1 or 2 episodes, his personality is not really there.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's deliberate because he's coming out of the institution, the mental institute, and he's, he doesn't come into his own until he's sort of partway through that first season.
Yeah.
But for me, he's almost kind of the not boring, but the less interesting center.
Yeah.
And it's Elliot and Margot and they're the ones that bring the colour.
Both of those.
Oh, she doesn't hate Elliot. Elliot's possibly my favourite character of any show in history.
The only character she probably hates more than Elliot is Penny.
Oh, Penny's very annoying initially, but he's meant to be, because he's meant to be almost the antagonist, even though he's one of the crew.
Yeah, no, but I was hooked instantly. I just think that the story, it made me want to read the books for sure.
Oh, brilliant.
Because I just think that the story was so much fun. And like, sure, it's not an original premise by any stretch, but it feels original to me. It doesn't. It doesn't feel like it's a ripoff of.
Lev Grossman's been very open, saying he wrote it because
he was inspired.
He loved Narnia. He loved Harry Potter.
Yep,
and
exactly.
He always thought, what if it wasn't kid stuff?
Yeah, and I think that works tremendously well, because you can feel those homages, and they do feel more like homages than rip-offs. Like, they don't feel
the
like...
Narnia allusions are so replete through it.
Yeah.
And more so, you'll find it if you keep watching all the way through, it's there. It's so apparent.
Yeah. No, I was hooked on this one straight away. I'm gonna keep watching this for sure. I don't know if I'll be able to get Noose to keep going, but I'm gonna watch this one.
Did you get to any of the musical episodes?
No, we only watched the first 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh God! Oh, you've barely scraped the surface then.
But it is fun because it feels, in a lot of ways, it feels more like a kind of teen show, which I know that you're very prone to, Vampire Diaries, and I'm the same.
I don't think of this in the same vein, though.
No, well, that's what I was going to say. It feels like it in a lot of ways. You've got the kind of college setting and this group of young friends, kind of, but it doesn't. I mean, so far anyway, in these first 3 episodes, it's not kind of about the relationships or anything, and there is a lot more grown-up stuff, like the demon who comes into the room whose face is made of moths and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like horrific, but there's kind of horror elements to a lot of the stuff that happens.
I found that pretty creepy.
Yeah.
And there is definitely blood to come.
Yeah.
That you're not up to yet. It's not a sort of a YA show by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, mate. And I hadn't thought about this when I was recommending it. Might be good that Noose bowed out, because it does get darker.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And miles in your future, but the final episode of season 4 is one of the most moving things I've ever seen on any show in my life.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's not just me. I've other people online, even in some of the online groups that we're both in, would back me up. It is heart-wrenching.
Yeah, right. So, hooked on this one. Great recommendation. I'm giving it a B+.
Oh, I'm so pleased. Alrighty, what am I? I'm kind of torn as to order now. I think I'm going to put Joe Schmo.
Okay. Yeah.
Next, this was a weird one because I was coming in kind of knowing what it was, because I did watch, I think, the first episode many years ago whenever it was on, and then didn't continue with it, but. I've watched, I think, I want to say like 6 episodes, something like that.
Okay, so you liked it enough to watch more than the 3.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I have to say, I think it is one of the cleverest premises for a show I've come across. It's really, really clever. And not just the idea of having a reality show where it's not really a reality show.
Yeah.
It's if anything, it's got more in common with Punk than it does with Big Brother.
Yeah.
But watching it, not only did I find myself sort of vacillating between thinking this is so funny, and then thinking this is the cruelest practical joke I've ever seen committed to film.
Yeah. That's what I was saying to you when I recommended it too. It's really interesting because you would, like, just by the virtue of the premise, it sounds like it's at this guy's expense. But it's actually not. Like, very early on, like, they've done an amazing...
very apparent that they all care about him. At
several to the point where you can tell as it goes on that even the cast feel absolutely terrible about the entire premise
several
of this
times
show.
when they're having their sort of production meetings, they find a reason to gather in the trailer because he's, they send him off to do a diary entry or something.
Yeah.
And you can see that they, particularly, and I'm not going to remember his name, but the guy that plays sort of the best friend, the kind
Kip.
of not Kip, the gay guy. The I think his name's Brian.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
Who's also the one who's also one of the writers.
Yep.
He had a one episode where he was saying to camera, none of us thought going into this.
Yeah.
We all thought this was just a bit of fun. We never thought there'd be real emotions. And it came after, I think, the old military guy, I think it's Earl, got voted off.
Yes.
And
Joe cried.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And because he'd been actively trying to get Ashley, the kind of hot yuppie chick, off because he had the hots for her, and then she said she had a thing for the host, and so he went, "Oh, fuck you then," and so he went around campaigning to try and get her off, and then Earl got her. But then Earl gave his farewell speech where this hard old, ex-military guy thanked Kip, the gay guy, for opening his eyes to different ways of life and stuff, and I found myself getting moved by that speech, and I knew it was fucking bullshit. He's an actor. Yeah. Kip's Lance Krull. He's not a little struggling gay guy. The characters aren't real. The speech was fake. And I still found myself getting – I kept falling into the trap of thinking that the reality show was real and that these people were real, which is a credit to the actors as much as anything else.
And for them to keep it up the way they do.
And sort of be ad-libbing the whole thing was it's a lot more impressive than you would think in passing
definitely.
about this show. The acting, the way that they kept it going with, it's always impressive. One of my favorite films of all time is this low budget sci-fi thing called Coherence, which I'm not sure if you've seen it or not. It's not seen, not very widely seen, but it's an incredibly convoluted sci-fi film that had no script. It's an ensemble cast. The only person of any note's Xander from Buffy, but the rest of them are unknowns. And the whole thing is ad-libbed. And that's a film, and that's impressive. This is a series that ran for multiple episodes.
Yeah.
And not only is it basically ad-libbed the entire time, but it's ad-libbed where one of the cast are not aware. So it's not like you can ad-lib a scene and then go, oh, fuck, that didn't really work. Let's why don't we try this?
For weeks straight.
with no rehearsal and no do-overs.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just so impressive. And to me, it's a show about, which is my favorite kind of thing. This is why I love this show. It's about what it is to be human. I know that sounds so wanky.
It sounds incredibly wanky, but it is also true.
Yeah, it's a show about human and how we interact with each other and how we it's so much smarter than I think it even appears just on its own. I think it's smarter than anyone who even came up with the concept realized it was at the time.
Oh, it's not, you wouldn't really know until after you started going into it. And I haven't got to the end.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen kind of the denouement where he realizes, and I can only imagine it would just his world is just going to come crumbling down. Don't spoil it. But even watching it on the way through, I'm thinking, what is this? How is he ever going to go on with his life?
Yeah.
He will be going through normal situations in his life 5 years from now and be thinking, do you mean that?
Yeah.
Or is this fake? Is anything real?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just quite incredible.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed this one. I thought that we were now up to number 3. I thought maybe these would be like getting quite weak, but I'm glad to hear that you still enjoyed this one.
No, because it's kind of like Ed TV and what was the rip-off one that did better that had
Truman Show?
In it? Truman Show.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I mean, it's the same sort of thing where you've got this schmuck that doesn't know that everyone's watching him.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's real. And once that Band-Aid gets ripped off, how do you ever go back to trusting people again?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. My memory is that after the final, there is another episode which is like 6 months later or something.
Oh,
it's like
thank God.
Like reuniting the car. And that's really interesting as well. To see him like, and it's the first time he's kind of talking to these people knowing that they're actors and stuff. So definitely watch that one as well.
Particularly Brian, who's the one who's also the writer.
Yeah.
I'm only halfway through, but already this is like the best friend Matt's had in his life.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is? Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, so what's the rating?
Give it a B, but it could well go up. It depends on how it get.
Right.
I haven't managed to get through the season yet, and I'm definitely keen to watch that. I think it's the second season where you said there's 2 of them and one of them figures out and joins that I'm really keen for as well.
Nice.
It's a good premise. Yeah.
All right. Well, my number 3 is the one where I have to tell you I've broken the rules on, and I haven't watched all 3 episodes yet. But I feel like that's okay because I was hooked after 1 episode. And the only reason I haven't is because this is the miniseries. This is The Lost Room, which I loved. But I just have not had the time because each episode is like an hour and a half and trying to fit that all in. But I was hooked 10 minutes in. You're right. This show is like X-Files. Like even the music, it's not done by Mark Snow, but it has that same feeling and tone to it where it just felt comforting and like home to me. And I just found the whole premise.
I knew this would resonate with you.
Yeah, the whole premise is really interesting because it's kind of mixes all these genres together. And at the end of the day, it has a real quest and purpose to it because there's the objects that he has to find. He doesn't know how many. He doesn't know what they look like. He doesn't know really anything about them. And that, as a concept, I just think is really fun and inventive. And I find it really interesting that this got made really as an original miniseries. But I'm really, really hooked on this so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sure I was effusive about it when I put it in the mix. It's one of the most perfect miniseries I've ever seen. And if I had to pick, I think the TV miniseries is my favorite medium of storytelling. It's so rarely done. It's that perfect mix between feature film, which has big budget and gets, to be really impressive on that front, versus TV show where you've got character development. So a mini-series, you get more character development than you do. It's kind of like watching a 9, 10, 15, whatever hour movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Often in terms of budget. But you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a complete story, which you often don't get with TV shows because they either drag on for years and years, or they're cancelled early and have to go, let's wrap it up. A miniseries is kind of like the perfect, and some of my favourite TV, like The Lost Room, like I don't know if you've ever seen. There was probably my favourite miniseries of all time is a thing called Edge of Darkness, which was a 1980s British thing.
No, I haven't.
With Bob Peck and Joe Don Baker. Yeah, I may well put that if we do a second round of this, that'll be in there. But Yeah, it's such a perfect medium for storytelling.
Yeah. Well, it is nice. Like I said, I haven't had a chance yet to watch episode 2 and 3, but it is so nice knowing that I'll see this complete story.
Technically, The Lost Room is 6 episodes, but they put them out as 2 episodes per thing. So you've done you've done 2/3 of the required reading.
Well, there we go. But no, I really, really liked this show instantly. It was comforting to me, and it probably part of that probably is my love of the X-Files, because this does have a very, very similar tone, like strikingly similar. Just in the score helps a lot, but just the plotting and there's a certain level of predictability to it as well, which feels like a Monster of the Week episode of the X-Files, where I feel like I'm going to feel comforted by the end of it, even though what's happening now isn't very nice, like his daughter's missing and stuff, but there's kind of just something comforting about it. Yeah.
And it's clever sci-fi, which I don't think we get enough of.
Yeah.
It's more so now than it kind of feels like it should have been back in the 80s or early 90s when you did have the X-Files and things like that. And sci-fi was a little bit more still hanging on to that Twilight Zone, Outer Limits clever writing, where you had people like Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke and that writing for TV. Sci-fi now is very much the post-Star Trek sort of stuff, which is I love, but it's different. It's a different sort of thing. It's not that kind of terrestrial, Earth-based, clever sci-fi, which I love so much. This was the first thing this was the first one on the list when we said we were doing this. I knew this would be right up your alley.
Yeah, nice. Yep. Well, I give it a B. Very, very enjoyable. Yep.
Alrighty. Now, this is very tricky because I'm going to put these last 2 in one order.
Okay.
But I have a very strong suspicion that order will change once I've watched more.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm going to put Devil is a Part-Timer next.
Okay. All right.
And I've got to tell you, of all 5, this was probably the roughest of the first episodes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I didn't hate it. I watched it with Ayla and she was right into it.
Yeah.
Obviously being anime. I was kind of like, on paper I like the idea. It's kind of like Lucifer. I like, Devil's working at McDonald's. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But geez, that was a struggle to get through. Episode 2 was kind of okay. Okay. I'm kind of the characterizations are starting to build up, But episode 3, I really liked.
Nice.
I don't know if it was the fact that your central character, Satan or whatever his name is in it, started to become kind of more human and more cynical and more dry.
Yes. Yeah.
In his delivery.
Yeah.
And you got the female, whatever her name is, the hero, Elsie or
Amelia.
Yeah. Came into the picture, and the kind of two-way back and forth between them was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Where you can tell that there's probably going to end up being a romance there down the track.
Yeah.
But at the moment, they're just being really, really biting and cutting back and forth. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the off-sided demon guy who's basically kind of this...
Become like a housewife.
Like a camp butler at this...
Yeah. Who's so obsessed with his master as well. Like, he just thinks it's like the greatest thing ever.
and she comes in and is mocking the dinner, and he's like, well, what do you expect me to do with 3 pickles and a whatever?
Yeah.
I started to really enjoy it.
So did Ayla keep watching this one with you as well?
No, but not because she didn't want to. Just because I was getting close to crunch time and thought I need to pump out 2 more episodes. And she was a little bit crestfallen when I said I'd gone back and watched episodes 2 and 3 without her. So we might have to revisit those. But I think we'll keep going for a while anyway.
Okay, yeah.
And so, anime's not my bag.
Yeah.
But the characters in this are intriguing enough that I do want to keep going at least for a bit longer and kind of see whether that takes off or not.
I think anime, there's something generally kind of like inherently goofy about it, and particularly like with this one, it is kind of a silly premise. There is some silliness to it, but I do think that the characters are intriguing, and especially after a few episodes.
Well, it doesn't have quite the level of that kind of really Japanese silliness, which it just doesn't resonate with me. I know our mutual friend Dan Brennick is a huge fan of One Piece, which my kids are, particularly my youngest Leah, is a massive fan of. And I try and watch it with her, and I tried to watch it because I know it's Dan's one of his favorite shows.
Yeah.
And I just can't. I can't get into it. It's too silly. I sit there going, I can't engage with these characters because the animation is so kind of childish and silly. And I know that's my failing. It's just not something that resonates with me.
I'm the same. This for me is probably about as silly as I can get with anime. I mostly prefer like the very kind of grown-up dark stuff. My favorite is Death Note, which I couldn't recommend here because it's not a hidden gem. It's like a very popular show, but it is insanely. Oh my god! I think that's one of the. I need to check that out
shows. Because I think I said last time I actually quite enjoyed the Willem Dafoe live action thing, which I know is very frowned upon, but it's only because I've got no.
Oh, I mean, you would 100% love the anime, even though it's anime. It has the best cliffhangers of every single episode. You're just like, holy shit! I need to see what happens next.
I recently for the movie Scavenger Hunt that Josh Ragland's got on the Countdown channel. One of those was an anime, and I knew how highly Your Name was. Thought of. I know Dean Jeffrey and Dan Henderson are particularly big fans of. So I watched it, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah,
it was moving. It was beautiful because it had none of the silliness.
Oh,
it was
you should.
And I love Studio Ghibli and that sort of stuff. I love all of that. So it's not the animation style. That's beautiful. Yeah. It's. I guess it's just the tone that it takes. And from when I was younger, I was probably more into it. Obviously I was into the video nasty ones like Urotsukidoji, Legend of the Overfiend, and Fist of the North Star, and all those things.
Yeah, love Fist of the North Star, yes.
And Akira, obviously, at the time. And I don't know if you've seen it. There's one which is an incredible film called Perfect Blue.
I haven't seen it, no.
That's probably the best anime I've ever seen. That's a really, really beautiful film. Yeah. So I do. I guess it's the silliness. It's the crying in the eye, the water squirting sideways out of the eyes. And, so, but there wasn't too much of that in this, and I think the characters and even the English voice acting, I couldn't work out a way to have it undubbed, but whatever. We sort of overcame the little bit of silliness that was there, and by episode 3, I was really enjoying it. So I'll definitely keep going.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's a I'm going to say C+, and that feels really harsh. But looking at the fact that I've seen 3 episodes and one of them I really enjoyed, that is C+. But I think if it's more like the 3rd episode as I keep going.
Yeah,
I can see this sort of settling
I'm
around
glad
a B.
I enjoyed it enough, but that makes me sad for what's going to be last. Then, but
I did say the order of these last 2 is quite hard to pick, and you'll understand when I get to the last one. Yeah.
All right. Well, my number 4. This was the one show that for me, similar to Devil Is a Part-Timer for you, took more than the one episode. This was the first one I watched where I was like, okay, I'll see what happens next. And by episode 3, I was really enjoying it. And that's The Almighty Johnsons.
This was the one I was most worried about, even though I think I had it as my number 1.
Yeah.
Because it's the slowest burn. And I did feel that when looking back on it as a recommendation, I did think, Geez, I loved this by the time it got to season 3. I know that I binged the entire first season in one sitting because I was sick. And then I went back and watched the first 2 or 3, and I was like, oh, you know what? It's a pretty slow start.
I think it just tonally, in particular, the first episode is a little bit all over the shop tonally, where it's like, some of it's funny, but it's not really a comedy, and some of it's dramatic, but there's not really enough drama there to kind of hold me as an audience member. But I do find the premise really intriguing, and I did like a lot of the characters, even from the start. So, yeah, giving it that time, like you said, with Devil is a Part-Timer, to kind of get into the feeling of that. By episode 3, I was really enjoying it because I like all of the brothers. I love the cousin, Olaf, the bald guy. He's great. And I think for the most part, the acting is pretty good. The concept is very interesting and done in a different way than I expected. I thought that, like, when you told me the premise, it sounded more humorous to me than it is. It sounded kind of like it's a silly...
And I think that's, again, the fact that I'm sort of looking back on 3 seasons of TV that I watched several years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm remembering sort of little snapshots because, it is more dramatic and less out-and-out comedy than I remembered.
Yeah. And so
maybe that's to come in later seasons. I don't recall.
And so by episode 3, when I'd really settled into it, I was really enjoying it. And I'm definitely going to continue on with this one and see what happens.
Oh, brilliant.
Next. Yeah. So I'm a B- on this one.
Brilliant.
It's not as strong as the other shows, but I can see myself watching it through to the end, certainly at this point, because I am curious enough to see where it goes and how it's handled. And the kind of, given it is more dramatic than I thought, I'm curious to see what kind of stakes it plays with as well with its characters. So,
the stakes are definitely high.
Yeah.
And to give you an indication, the one thing I do remember, because it is several years ago since I watched it, but I do remember after season 2 finished, from memory it got cancelled.
Yes, and then fans petitioned and it came back.
I remember signing online petitions, and it was obviously a lot more of this happening in New Zealand than over here, but throwing my voice into the mix. And I remember this, and probably Winona Earp is the only other show I can remember where I was so pleased to have been part of a fan voice that actually got a final season made. Yeah, it happened with both of those shows, and I was, season 3 was such a kind of gift from the gods when it finally dropped. So,
nice.
Alrighty, well, given that this was, I think, your highest recommend of the 5,
it was, yeah.
I feel really bad, and let me clarify things. The reason it is where it is because I've only watched 3 episodes.
Yeah,
and I really didn't like the first one.
Right. Yeah.
Is
the first one scaffolding?
No. So obviously talking about How To with John Wilson.
Yeah.
Which I was the most reticent about because you did say it was produced by Nathan Fielder, and I
yep.
fucking hate his show. And so I was coming into it really kind of, a bit skittish. The first one was How to Do Small Talk.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And I mean, maybe if I watched it again now, having watched 2 other episodes and kind of having a feel for what
understanding
the show is,
what it is,
maybe. But it just felt a bit kind of nothing.
Yeah.
So, and you might be able to clarify this. Having watched 3 episodes now, and they got progressively better. The scaffolding one was at least interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at the city and, well, multiple cities, because he goes down to New Orleans, I think it is, as well.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about scaffolding. It was quite interesting.
You do, yeah.
But that was quite interesting. By the time we got to the memory one, that one I really enjoyed.
Yes, yeah. I remember really liking that one too, where he ends up at the group about the Mandela effect and stuff.
Oh, the fucking weird...
Yeah.
Yep. But as I went on, I started more and more to get the sense, and I don't know if this is the case, you might know, about how these episodes are made. it started to feel more and more like he is a guy with severe social anxiety.
Yeah.
Who just walks around filming constantly.
Yeah, I believe that's it, or at least that is, whether or not that's really him or whether that's just the kind of quote-unquote character that he's playing in this docuseries is a bit hard to tell. It's a similar thing with Nathan Fielder, where he plays this very kind of socially awkward guy, and it's like, well, how much of that is really him and how much of it is this character he's portraying? But yeah, that I believe that essentially is how the show is made. He just walks around filming everything.
But the question I've got is that how the show is made, or does he literally have like a serial killer house that is full of tens of thousands of hours of footage because he literally never takes the camera off his eye and just walks around
watches
filming
everything through the lens. Yeah.
And has he then sat back and gone, shit, I've got literally 10,000 years worth of footage.
Yeah.
And that has then gone and pull together bits and pieces that have a thematic through line and then added voiceover about scaffolding.
I believe it's the first one. I think that's more just how the show is presented, that it's put together. But I don't believe that he has this house full of videos. I think most of it is produced on the fly. I don't think it's as much archival footage as it looks like. I think it's very cleverly made to look like that, but I think that a lot of it is shot
obviously
fresh.
You've got certain bits where he's interviewing people that are on point, they're on topic.
Yeah.
But where he's adding voiceover to just footage of someone pissing on a wall or someone hanging on a bit of scaffolding, it really feels like he's gone, I've got a lot of footage of scaffolding. I'll go and interview some people about scaffolding. I'll go to that conference about scaffolding, and I'll use all of this other archival shit and just add some voiceover about it.
It's insane.
And sometimes people use it as a toilet.
It reminds me of that. I don't know if you would have seen it, but in the kind of video editing community, there's this fantastic video that got shared around on YouTube years ago about B-roll. And it's like, come on down to the B-roll emporium. We've got that B-roll. You want a sad woman with her face against a wall? We've got that B-roll. Why is her face against the wall? Because she's sad. You want a white man and a black woman walking down a beach together? We've got that B-roll. That is kind of what it reminds me of. Where like you say, there's just kind of this endless, massive footage that he somehow has. But I do believe that he must be. I think the episodes are more produced than they seem.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
But I find this show extremely clever, but I guess it really comes down, I am the wanker who, the plastic bag scene in American Beauty where it's like, yeah, there is beauty in that plastic bag. That's the kind of vibe I get from this series where, there's something beautiful about watching that guy piss on the scaffolding. It's like
the thing that I did get, which I didn't expect, and which will probably shock you, but hopefully in a good way, is that by the time I got to the end of the third episode, there's something weirdly moving about this show.
Yeah, there is. Yes, that's exactly right.
It's kind of like Koyaanisqatsi with a voiceover. It's real life captured.
Yes, it's artistic in its own way. It's very moving, emotionally, strangely, when it doesn't feel like it should be.
And yes, he's sort of giving it the cynical voiceover and kind of making it a joke of things. But at the same time, I kind of felt like you could turn the sound down to nil and just watch this footage of life happening. And now I'm the one sounding wanky, but it genuinely did start to get quite moving watching all of these people because, I mean, yes, he's making a joke that there's a guy using the scaffolding as a toilet, but at the same time, it's footage of, probably a homeless guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And people just walking past him. And it's all of these things, one after the other. He's capturing real life.
Yes, yeah.
Happening in this, the busiest city on earth, where stuff's happening all the time, and you've got people who get overlooked, you've got people who are rushing to this and rushing to that, you've got people who are friends meeting. It's kind of like, and I know you love this as well, that end scene of Love Actually at the airport, where you've just got all these little tiny vignettes of people encountering one another, departing from one another. It's that sort of.
I'm glad that you got that from it, because that is what I love about the show, and that's why I recommended it. Is that kind of emotive feeling that I at least get watching something like that, and it is the same feeling that I get watching Nathan Fielder's stuff, which I know that you're not a fan of. But
He's such a dickhead.
The fact that after 3 episodes of this, you started to at least kind of feel that.
I'm definitely going to watch more, and that's why I said it's hard to place this, and I have to do it based on what I've seen so far.
It gives me hope that maybe one day you could enjoy some Nathan Fielder stuff.
No, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I do see how to with John Wilson. I'm giving it a C.
Yeah.
But I'm giving it a C based on the fact that the first 2 episodes, if I wasn't doing this, I probably wouldn't have continued.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that we were doing this, and I did, and I will watch more. And if it continues, as I suspect it will, to now that I kind of know what it is, and I'm kind of in sync with the vibe that he's giving to these.
Yeah.
I do expect to enjoy it more and more as it goes, and I think C is not where it's going to live. I think that's just where it is at the moment.
Yeah, nice. Well, my last one is ironically also what I think is probably the best made show that I watched of the 5, The Fades. I think this is, from the moment it starts, I think it's very engaging, but there's something about it that never got me hooked. I don't know what it is. I think that it's really well put together. I think that there are some genuine scares in here too. Like, this is much more of a horror than I expected it to be.
Yeah, it's.
I had no idea that it was, written, created, directed by Jack Thorne, who has given us lots of good stuff. Obviously, His Dark Materials is the big one he's working on at the moment. Enola Holmes, which I haven't seen, but
Enola Holmes is great.
Yeah. But this show is very well written, very well produced and everything. But it just didn't grab me, and I'm not sure why yet. I am going to keep going because it is very short. There's only 6 episodes total. No. So it would feel wrong to leave a story unfinished. But I'm not really sure what it is about it that didn't grab me.
That's weird. I was more worried about probably The Magicians than this resonating.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because The Magicians is, as you know, one of my favorite shows of all time. You'd think I'd back it a little bit more. But I guess that's because I'm more invested, and I kind of want people to like it, and I'm nervous if they won't. The Fades is a weird one. It got cancelled. So
I didn't realize it was cancelled. I assumed it was only ever planned for 6 episodes.
There was going to be a season 2, and it got cancelled, and there was a massive uproar with fans. But to me, even though you kind of get to the end, you go, "Oh fuck!" I kind of have come to kind of like where it ends.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's like it doesn't end particularly happy.
Yeah.
But I think...
Well, that's okay. I'm okay with an unhappy ending.
Yeah, I think it ends well.
Yeah. I think there's something about it that feels almost derivative in certain ways, and it's probably because I'm watching it now, whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 years later, and we've seen I think horror has had a real resurgence. I think the last 10 years have been almost like the 80s for horror, particularly for more kind of darker, less campy horror.
I can't keep up with the number of every time I turn on Netflix or Prime or whatever, there's some new genre show on there that, I mean, I've got to the point where before I even start, I just jump on and look at IMDb and look at whatever and just go, am I even going to waste time on episode 1 of this?
Yeah. And so while I can recognize that The Fades is very well put together, I think it just didn't. I didn't feel an emotional connection to it like I want to. Like I didn't fall in love with any of the characters like I often will with a show, and that's kind of what keeps me going back usually is the characters. So I recognize this was really good. I'm giving it a C+. It's not a bad show by any stretch. It just for me didn't suck me in, but yeah, I am going to finish it. Like especially I've only got 3 episodes left. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, this was fun. Were there any big surprises for you, either in what you watched or in what I thought of things?
Probably episode 3 of How To with John Wilson was a surprise to me, and how it affected me. I really went into that not expecting to like it.
Yeah.
Because I think the one thing, and you and I are in sync on most things, but I think the one thing where we differ is your bizarre love of this cringe comedy stuff.
It's not cringe that like. Here's the thing and this is what I'm a big fan as well of a TV show called Impractical Jokers, which a lot of people would class in that kind of cringe comedy thing. But I don't like stuff like Jackass, for example.
That's just moronic. But I'm sure you would like the English Office.
Oh, yes, I do. I love the English Office,
I love Ricky Gervais. I love Stephen Merchant. I appreciate the genius of the writing of that, but I find it almost impossible to watch because I David Brent, I find literally makes my skin crawl to watch how awkward. And I don't understand the people that like that sort of. I haven't watched the US Office, which I'm told is very different in tone,
I
absolutely should watch it.
Yeah, for years and years and years, I would have sworn black and blue that the British Office, of course, it's the original, it's superior, of course it is. But I got to say, I've rewatched the US Office probably 3 or 4 times, and it is close to a perfect series.
It's very much on my to-do list is to get into that because
if you don't like the cringe stuff, you will have to push past the first, I'd say 1.5 seasons. And after that, that's really when they took the ball and ran with it and went, you know what, if we want people to watch this show, this guy has to be likable to some extent. He can still do stupid, cringy things, but by the end of each episode, you have to kind of feel bad for him or something like that. And that's when it really becomes like a perfect show. But
yeah.
I think we should definitely do something like this again.
I've already got another 5 in mind. Just having gone through this, there's other things. I was like, I should have put this on my list.
All right. Well, what are we getting to next week, mate?
Shit, what are we getting to next week?
I'll tell you what we're getting to. Knock at the Cabin. We're getting to some Shyamalan.
Oh, fuck.
I'm excited. Right. And I've somehow convinced Noosk to see it, even though it looks quite horror adjacent. She's like, yeah, I'll watch that. So that'll be fun. That's date night on Friday.
Oh, God, that poor woman. Not only is it horror,
leave her
but
alone.
It's going to suck.
No, I'm keen. I have high hopes. All right. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing. Hit us up. Tell us what you thought of any of these shows. We got some good feedback to the first part of this, and I had at least one listener say that they binged How To with John Wilson and loved it. So,
so your people, Billy.
And we'll catch you next week.
See ya.